Hey guys, sorry for the hiatus in my channel. To be honest, I get a little burnt out on bodybuilding after the Olympia each year. Couple that with the NFL playoffs taking shape immediately after, and it was pretty easy to find other ways to spend my time. So my next two videos are going to cover my personal picks for the 2020 IFBB season before I move on to 2021. This video will cover the female selections. I feel that about half of them are pretty concrete while the other half are debatable. Also, with the way last year transpired, there's going to be inevitably some recency bias, but the Olympia kind of wraps up the season and sets the narratives going forward. So what I tried to do here was consider all of the divisions, but I'll be honest in that I probably missed some bikini athletes. So without further ado, here are my picks for the following categories: Pro Debut, Best Comeback, Most Determined, Best Division Swap, Most Conditioned, Most Improvement, Sportsmanship, and finally the Most Dominant. So I feel it's best to issue the first award to the best rookie debut. If anyone missed it, Rachel Daniels had the most meteoric rise of anyone in the IFBB this year. By winning her pro card in physique, then her first pro show, and finally capping the season off by placing 7th at the Olympia isn't something we see very often. And I did a lot of research for the Olympians in my earlier videos, and finding a rookie place in the top 10 is like finding a needle in a haystack. Going forward, I could see her becoming one of the fan favorites as she puts an enormous amount of energy into her posing routines. So a few people saw this one coming, but not immediately following the 2019 Olympia. Natalia Soltero didn't even place there when she usually finished in the top 10, and this can often be the death knell for many athletes' careers. But that didn't set her back. She seemed to have synced with her coach and qualified for the Olympia by a rather non-traditional method. Winning the Arnold Classic does indeed qualify you, but it's almost always won by someone already registered for it. And if it wasn't for Sydney Gillen, the most dominant champion of any division at the moment, Soltero would have swept the board this year. Her rise, along with Zenobia's, are definitely a breath of fresh air, as the division was starting to feel a tad stale. In a way, Janet Layig's career trajectory reminds me of Jay Cutler's. She turned pro back in 2013 and made a name for herself when she placed second at her first Olympia a couple years later. And initially it seemed only a matter of time before she won, but always seemed to fall short, albeit remaining in the mix. And it's also impressive that she's been able to remain relevant throughout the division's lifespan, as the growing talent pool tends to shuffle people out for the first 3 years before things start to calm down. And you can compare her with Kaltwasser, who beat her back in 2013 and is the same age as her. She can still win shows, but has struggled to get in that top 5 call-out in recent memory. But after 7 long years, Janet's long-pursued dream became a reality, and this narrative was a bit overlooked at the show. The Women's Open is probably going to see more and more swaps from women's physique in the coming years. Mayla Ash was the one this year that definitely stood out the most. And I've talked about it before, but it bears repeating. The higher standard of conditioning in the women's physique class allows them to do very well when moving up into the Open. And this was her 4th Olympia, and she had never been able to crack the top 10 before now. And not only did she do that, but she knocked off some of the grizzled veterans of the division. And something tells me she's not going to miss the women's physique class. Out of all the predictions I made going into last year's Olympia, this result caught me off guard the most. I don't think Barbara Minajji was on anyone's radar for a top 10 finish. Ivy Rain was expected to do the most damage in the placings, but it was Minajji, who has been competing for a few years now, that made a bigger footprint in her wake. And to illustrate how crazy this placing was, Barbara has yet to win a pro show, but was able to beat competitors who had never lost one outside of the Olympia. She was only there because they qualified the top 3 in the European Pro this year. And I actually consider this a bigger upset than Shanique losing. Her future is going to be very interesting to watch because it still remains to be seen if she's a flash in the pan or a perennial contender in this division. So while it was the most hotly contested decision of the event, Sarah Villegas' unmatched conditioning allowed her to pull off an upset that no one thought would be possible. And this is definitely an iconic pose that will mold the division for many years going forward. And truth be told, I'm not sure why people have been arguing the decision itself instead of where they need to draw a line in the sand. Sarah seems to have raised the bar in that department, so it's going to be interesting how the rest of the field responds and what the judging mandates going forward. Everybody was talking about how Brandon Curry didn't get the respect he deserved as the reigning champion when Phil's return sucked up most of the oxygen in the room. And this was definitely true to some extent, but even more so for Whitney Jones, who most rode off as a distant third after Oksana expected to duel Missy Jones for the title. But Whitney Jones didn't let it faze her and put on a stellar defense. And I'm not the most knowledgeable regarding the division, but I thought a case could have been made for each of the top 3 winning it. And yet again, Whitney didn't let it faze her, as she's always been a class act from what I've gathered. The most dominant award for females could have went to 2 different people. One possibility was Sydney Gillen in figure, while the other was Andrea Shaw in open. And I ended up going with Shaw because she swept the Omaha Pro, Rising Phoenix, and Miss Olympia with the perfect score, while Gillen did so only at the O. And Shaw could have won the Most Improved award as well, like Bumstead, but people in the know have been expecting this to happen for some time now. So those are my awards for the 2020 IFBB season. Going forward, I'm going to continue spitballing videos out before I really decide a direction for the channel. To be honest, I've been pleasantly surprised by the traction women's physique has gotten in particular, but disappointed by the viewership of the men. I still want to maintain a channel that covers everything succinctly because there's never really been one, but perhaps there's a reason behind it. I don't know anyone that really enjoys elements from each division like I do. Everyone seems to pick a couple divisions and only follow them. So if you agree or disagree with my choices, have an idea for a different award, or have any video requests, let me know in the comments. I meant to do a breakdown explaining the women's physique upset, but never finished it and figured everyone's moved on by now. So if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, smash that subscribe tab, and ding that little bell icon. Until next time, stay safe and thanks for watching.